This year, the Peel Board faces unprecedented challenges as it attempts to balance growing educational needs with shrinking resources. The Peel Board is committed to quality education programs, but is also determined to control expenditures and to lessen the burden on local taxpayers. In this video, we will explain the issues currently facing the Peel Board and describe our efforts to meet the budget challenge of 1993.
The Peel Board of Education serves a vast region encompassing urban and rural settings in 3 municipalities: Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. It is Canada's largest public school board with a full-time enrollment of more than 92,000. These students, along with 80,000 adult learners, come from many different neighborhood communities, reflecting the region's multicultural diversity. In 1992, it cost an average of $7,261 to educate one Peel student. How is the education dollar spent? The largest portion, 81%, goes to salary and benefits. Funds to operate and maintain schools and other facilities, instructional supplies and materials, and transportation costs total 10.4%. Debt payments, administration, interest expense, tax write-offs, tuition fees and other costs account for the remaining 8.6%. Where does the money come from? In 1982, the Ministry of Education contributed 34.2% of the cost of educating students in Peel's public schools. Unfortunately, provincial funding has decreased significantly in the last 10 years. In fact, it has dropped by half to less than 14%. It is, of course, local taxpayers who must bear this increasing burden. Peel has also suffered in the area of capital grants, which is the money needed to build new schools for Peel's growing population. In 1991, the board requested funding to build new schools for 5,000 students. The Ministry of Education approved only enough new construction to house 420 students and will pay only 30% of this cost. Meanwhile, 15,000 students remain in portables. With projected enrollment growth of 2,000 students per year, this problem will only get worse. What are the board's responsibilities? As an educational institution and as an employer, the Peel Board is subject to much legislative direction. In fact, almost everything that the Peel Board does originates with some form of legal document. The Education Act requires the board to offer programs for students of compulsory school age and up to 7 years in secondary school. The board is also required to provide special education, instruction for Francophone students, heritage language instruction, lunchroom supervision, speech services, attendance counseling, and transportation. As an employer, the board is directed by legislation dealing with pay equity, labor relations, health and safety, and human rights, among others. The board is also subject to building and fire codes, as well as legislation governing traffic, environmental concerns, and waste management. How is the board meeting the budget challenge? In 1991, the board cut $25 million from its budget, followed by cuts of more than $19 million in 1992. These cuts and reductions affected every central board office department and every field office. Classroom programs were reduced and nearly 600 jobs were lost. Junior kindergarten and elementary summer school were eliminated, and service was reduced in many other areas. English as a second language, school libraries, transportation eligibility, lunchroom supervision, supply budgets, outdoor education, and school secretarial, custodial, and administrative support all suffered in the 1992 budget. The Peel Board continues to find new ways to save money and maintain services. Administrative streamlining has resulted in greater efficiency. Joint ventures with the separate school board and local governments have led to further savings. This includes bulk purchasing, joint recycling, and transportation agreements. It is also exploring the possibility of alternate funding for some initiatives. The board recognizes the importance of building mutually beneficial partnerships with business, community agencies, and government. The board is taking an entrepreneurial approach to meeting the needs of all Peel's learners. Through the efforts of Community Education Services, Peel has become the largest workplace trainer in Canada.
The Peel Board has adopted 6 principles to guide the budget decision-making process in 1993. First, the continuing success of our students is an absolute priority. We must maintain essential programs and services. We also believe that resources must be allocated in a balanced and equitable manner. The third principle concerns new directions. The board is not planning major new initiatives, but changes are inevitable. And these changes will be guided by existing priorities identified in the board's long-range planning, namely strategic planning, annual management priorities, and the organization renewal report. 2 current examples of this are planning for school success and community education. We also believe that if planning efforts create a new focus for the board, the required resources should come from within the existing budget. The 5th principle recognizes that some areas may need more resources, not less. As student enrollment continues to grow, so does the need for staffing, accommodation, transportation, and other services. These factors must be considered before deciding what resources to allocate. We must make every effort to preserve jobs. If the new budget calls for a smaller workforce, this should be accomplished through attrition before termination. We realize that economic realities may conflict with these goals. Nevertheless, it is important to have a set of guidelines to help us make the best possible decisions.
Enrollment growth, contract negotiations, new schools, and increased maintenance and supply costs mean that developing this budget will remain a challenge. As trustees, we are determined to meet this challenge in a positive and collaborative way, but we need your help. Our government, our society, and our community all have considerable expectations for the Peel Board of Education. These pressures coincide with a period of unprecedented economic restraint. Resolving this dilemma calls for a new approach to the way we all view and manage change. Staff will need to understand the pressure for change and support it by putting forward ideas for doing things differently. Unions will need to join the board in seeking more collaborative and consultative ways of resolving conflicts and meeting challenges. Community groups will need to stay involved in the decision-making process and work to meet the needs of all students. Our government partners will need to show understanding. They need to allocate funding more fairly, allow meaningful consultation, and keep their promises. Success in developing the 1993 budget will come from the collective wisdom of all who care about education in Peel. It will not be easy, but it will be worth it.